From shooting to exploring caves, meeting strangers, or eavesdropping on your enemies. Video games have been with us for years, and at this point in time we start recognizing the ongoing development in this industry. Video games are being more and more influential all around the world, and playing them is becoming a legitimate way to spend time. But what attracts people to actually sit down and spend the time of their everyday life to play video games? What is the first thing that comes to mind when we think about any video game? Is it an original storyline? Is it the never-ending yearning for an improvement in graphics? Or could it be the sound? The synchronized breathing of a character you are playing? The ambience of the area you are in? Sound and music exists in every video game nowadays, and with the rapid development of the topic's field, grows the demand of soundtrack production relevant to specific audience groups all over the world. In this visual essay, I am going to look at specific video games in terms of audio, contemplating its purpose and importance in a game, as well as how different types of soundtracks attract different players. To understand the point of sound and music in video games, we actually have to know what it means to human beings. Music is a fundamental part of our evolution. We probably sang before we spoke in syntactically guided sentences. Music is considered a crucial human experience that mirrors cognitive capabilities, and it is majorly tied to our social instincts linked to communicative functions, space perception, and human cultures, where people have a sense of belonging to a social sphere by sharing similar experiences and intentions. With music we can learn as well. It takes place within the connection between music and emotional experiences. Darwin also made a connection between music and emotions, considering it as a human core capability. Emotional systems are forms of adaptation allowing us to, for instance, note danger through the immediate detection of facial expressions. Musical sensibility is surely just as fundamental to the human species as, for instance, language. From a simple adaptation there emerges lively expression in almost any culture. Music is indeed generative, structurally recursive, and knotted to grouping. But during more recent times, we are constantly being bombarded with the non-interactive forms of entertainment regarding to audio, such as cinema, radio, recorded music, and television. And maybe that's why video games are so special, considering the fact that they're purely interactive. That being said, firstly, the importance of video game consumers is worth mentioning, or as they call each other, gamers, keeping in mind that every person as an individual is different. The existence of video games wouldn't be possible without a consumer, or as we could call them, an end user or a gamer. We all have distinctive needs relative to ourselves. When searching for a new video game to play, gamers look at broad aspects such as the popularity of a game, its storyline, atmosphere, and the most important factor is genre. Martin Campbell Kelly notes in his History of the Software Industry, genre publishing was the first conscious risk management strategy for the games industry. From his point of view, the purpose of genre publishing was that certain categories of games appealed to specific user groups. Why is genre games so important? Well, game genres are distinguished through several main characteristics, such as narrative, representation, rules of gameplay, and types of interactivity with the player. Being familiar with those specifics, a player can therefore choose a video game based on their needs and understanding of the rules of a gameplay. It is a significant marketing step where a distinct genre is more appealing to a specific target market. Accordingly, the main characteristics that have been mentioned before have a distinct impact on the ways in which audio functions in terms of its relationship to a gamer. Video games genres keep on expanding with time, and each of them has its own unique type of soundtrack. Now, to understand the purpose of it, we are going to go back in time, when pinball machines were just as popular as slot machines in gambling clubs. What's the correlation between a pinball machine and a video game soundtrack, you may ask? Well, pinball was one of its kind entertainment, one of the first game machines that generated a sound of bells and buzzers. An example of it could be a sound found in the Pacific Amusement Company's Contact. It had an electric bell designed exclusively by Harry Williams of Williams Manufacturing. It started a fashion in electric bells and chimes inside the machines before the rise of electronic pinball machines in the 1970s because these particular sounds attracted players and generated excitement. Nowadays, the video game industry is more sensitive on picking the sounds. Comparing the most popular genres, let's take a look at Fortnite's soundtrack first. It's an online video game developed by Epic Games. The main point of its gameplay is to survive, which leads to eliminating enemy players and searching for weapons. It has a main menu theme, pretty recognizable even for non-players. But when you actually start playing it, there's no soundtrack. It is mainly because, as an online game, players need to communicate through their microphones, and any type of soundtrack, even a mild ambient type, could potentially disturb a player's focus. Now, let's examine a video game called Journey. It is an indie adventure game created by That Game Company and Santa Monica Studio. Journey has its own extraordinary soundtrack, playing all the way throughout the gameplay, and because of that, this game pretty much relies on it. This soundtrack tells us a story just as much as the gameplay, taking you on a journey of correlating scenarios. It is melancholic, emotional, and extremely atmospheric, which is Journey's intention, to feel those emotions and understand the key message of this game, acting as a contrast to Fortnite. There are many more examples of music setting a specific tone in a video game and establishing its message. One of them is an action-adventure game called Grand Theft Auto, where the important part of its soundtrack exists within a collection of simulated radio stations inside a car. The gameplay exists within an open world, modeled after real-life cities, therefore the soundtrack is a collection of real-life songs that exist in our world. In GTA 5, the stations vary from country to techno, from hard rock to reggae. Inside the gameplay, we can choose which character we want to play, and when we make them enter their own vehicle, their personality reflects through the song they listen to, which comes automatically for every character. Michael DeSanto is a middle-aged man who spends too much time inside his head dwelling on the nostalgia from his glory days. That being said, the music he enjoys stereotypically reflects his personality, like indie, rock, and funk music from his old times. The other character, Franklin Clinton, is a young man formerly a ghetto-based street dealer. Therefore, stereotypically, his style is hip-hop and it reflects in his music taste, along with a splash of dancehall and rock. Another crucial side of Grand Theft Auto's soundtrack is the music being played while a player is browsing through the main menu of the game. It is recognizable all around the world with its street-style hip-hop atmosphere and anticipation for cruel scenarios happening in the game. In addition to games reflecting real life, there is also a broad collection of history games. Let's take a look at one of the most popular series of games based on the world's history, Assassin's Creed. This video game series usually depicts a fictional millennia-old struggle between the assassins who fight for peace with free will and the Templars who desire peace through order and control. Each part has its own distinctive atmosphere and place in time, although most of the storylines are fictional. The soundtrack in each part of the video game series is proportional to the time in history. For example, the main narrative of Assassin's Creed 2 takes place at the height of the Renaissance in Italy during the 15th and early 16th century. Players can explore Florence, Venice, or Tuscany. Therefore, the music includes some traditional instruments and musical elements that existed in this frame of time, like strings, acoustic guitars, and choir. In addition, it combines modern production techniques and elements like electric guitar, percussion, and ambient to give out the suspense of the gameplay's storyline and to attract younger customers that are just looking for a fun video game to play. Moreover, in certain video games, a soundtrack indicates a sudden change in gameplay. In Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc, players can explore different worlds, running about, collecting gemstones and health lumps. During a relaxed gameplay, the soundtrack is appropriate to a specific level, setting a distinguished tone and calm atmosphere. However, stepping into an enemy territory can be easily recognizable by the fading in of a different music. The fight scene soundtrack is memorable by its suspenseful timbre, resonating with the enemy's sound effect. That way, a player knows immediately about the danger, drops any casual action away, and takes care of the newly appeared villains. That being said, soundtracks play a crucial role in understanding and setting the purpose and the atmosphere of a video game. As a result of our pair of ears being acoustically tuned, one cognitive behavior related to humans is especially tied to our evolution, that is localization of sound within spatial awareness. It applies different but distinct methods which are based on intensity, arrive time, and the shape of the outer ear. With the hearing instinct, humans can locate the place of the incoming sound, the object of the sound itself, etc., regarding the place they are in, indoors or outdoors. It allows humans to be completely immersed in their surroundings. Hence, in terms of video game audio, soundtracks are not the only type of sound out there. One of the most crucial parts in the topic's field play the sound effects. In his work called The New Soundscape, a Canadian soundscape composer, R. Murray Schaffer, recalls the usual prior praise of sound, which was tied to the physical objects such as instruments and mechanisms that create a musical sound. Sound has always had a specific place of its own, be it wind in the forest or waves crashing on the beach. And maybe with the introduction of recording practices and separation of sound as hexaphonic activity, humans appreciate the actual sound of the objects even more. In video games, sound effects play an important part of a game's authenticity. They are there to make a gamer feel like he's part of a played video game and for them to open up and rewire their cognitive senses inside the game's world. One example of a video game mentioned earlier is Fortnite. Playing online with other gamers as enemies, a player needs to prick up their ears in a search for the crucial shooting and footstep sounds. In the following video game, each one of the interactive objects and events has its own sound effect, such as weapons, footsteps mentioned previously, or health potions. The following sound effects have been created in the image of the world's sounds as we know them. Therefore, it is easy for a player to adapt to Fortnite's world by rewiring his senses a little bit. In a similar way, specific sounds in a video game titled Far Cry 3 indicate the target a player is looking for instance being in the distinct location of the game's world and searching for a target animal to skin. A player knows a general direction of the animal when they hear its specific distance sound, like bear roars or pig snorts, preferably wearing stereo headphones. There is a whole world of possibilities for the future of video games audio. Spatialization of sound plays an important role. Therefore, the industry is looking at the binaurality in the application of it in video games, as well as the immersive world of XR, which is extended reality. There are some limitations to those methods. For instance, the end user needs a special binaural pair of headphones or VR goggles. Hence, it mainly works with dedicated gamers who want to expand their gaming possibilities with additional equipment. Two of the UK's leading gaming professors, Dr. Shaw of De Montfort University and Dr. Pauly of Falmouth University Games Academy, believe that mixed reality is something we should put money on, with future video games combining virtual and augmented reality technology. Dr. Shaw also implies that if VR is a winner, it should include the use of other human sensors. At the same time, Dr. Pauly goes into the AI-centered future, believing that the improvement in graphics, artificial intelligence, mobile technology, and internet infrastructure will associate with creative and artistic possibilities. On the whole, video game audio has numerous purposes and applications for a gameplay. Soundtracks play an important role in setting the tone, familiarizing a player with the game's characters, or informing about a possible change of action. On the other hand, sound effects create immersion that helps the gamer with sound localization and spatial awareness. Soundtracks and sound effects both build the atmosphere and portrait of a video game, which is hugely based on its genre and marketing methods in terms of a consumer. Finally, considering the evolution and path in which video game audio is going, its future forecast contains extended reality and binaural technologies the most, with the emphasis on artificial intelligence, improvement in graphics, and mobile technology.